Okay, in your notes, ito sa buong sa page number 3. Page number 3, we'll be talking about still sa general principles on wisdom literature. Today we'll talk about teachers of wisdom. Okay, just a little review. Sa the last time, we asked sa wisdom literature, according sa Bible, who is wise? Okay, and by this definition, we have said that wisdom is the ability to make godly choices in life. Okay? Ang totoo nga maalam para sa Ginoo is the people who are able, hindi lang yan possibly, but who are actually making godly choices in their life. And by the definition of wisdom literature, godly choices is just broken down to two things, right or wrong. Wala na, sakto or sala sa tubangan sa Ginoo, maayo or hindi sa tubangan sa Ginoo. And we said that the goal of wisdom is two things: successful and responsible living. And I think these are the two allergic words kung isa ang feeling ko na tapunan bala or gina-spiritualize ang mga tao, that we fail to raise up responsible and successful people. And one of the things nga nag-decide ko na tudlo or mawaliman sa Proverbs sa Bible School, because I found out nga may mga estudyante sa Bible School nga tapos na 4 years ga-training magpastor or mag-worker sa simbahan, but they cannot even, or they don't even know how to be responsible with simple things. For sa may kilala ko nga graduate sa seminary, hindi siya kuno maglimpyo, kaya tingin tawag siya sa Ginoo magwali. Even just to be responsible sa higko. How can you be a responsible person if the simple and little things in life you don't know how to do? So the goal of wisdom is not just you know which verses are which, or makasabat ka sa theology, but even the simple, responsible kind of living to give you a successful kind of living. Ito, kung isa, may sobra ka spiritual na, masiling sila ang successful lang niya sa mata sa Ginoo, ang nagpastor. Ito, ano di may matabo sa simbahan ta, kung pastor ta di tanan, sino mapungko sa aton ni mamati? Diba? So, success in the sight of God are not only those nga nagintawag sa Ginoo sa pagalagdan, but also successful living is becoming a successful wife, becoming a successful businessman, becoming a successful anyone in your field as long as it is right. Of course, this success doesn't have to do with anything immoral. Of course, sa mata sa Ginoo, hindi gini success kung ano ka ng kriminal or immoral ka base sa tao. But God is pushing in the wisdom literature for people to be responsible and be successful. Okay? So in ancient Israel, some people devoted themselves not only to gaining wisdom, but also to teaching others how to gain it. Okay? So we realize sa Israel, hindi lang niya ang mga tao gusto maging inalamon, mainilamon sa mata sa Ginoo, but they are the same people nga katulong man sa iban. They, or these instructors, were simply called wise men, though eventually they occupied a position in the society of Israel somewhat parallel to that of the priest and the prophet. So, ang una nga do office gid nga official sa Israel is priest. Okay? Ito, may pamilya gina, may lineage gina, dapat halin ka sa Levi nga tribe, or dapat halin ka sa pamilya ni Aaron, and that is genetic. Ipasa na ginaya, hindi na maghalin sa ilang pamilya. Sila lang na iya ang ginpiling ng pamilya. God is definite with that, and eventually, God called prophets. But because there are people who strive to become wise men in Israel, it became eventually a position. Jeremiah 18, come, let us make plots against Jeremiah, for the law shall not perish from the priest, nor counsel from the wise, nor the word from the prophet. Natawa ang pagparallel or ang pag-equalize sa mga tao. Ito, even though this verse was used in a bad sense, ito, gusto nila patyon si Jeremiah. because they don't think that Jeremiah is a good prophet. Kaya ginakontra ni Jeremiah ang ila gusto matabo sa Israel. Ito gusto lang nila mabatian, iwali sa ila ang gusto nila mabatian. So, ang malalapat yun si Jeremiah, but the verse is telling us the priest, the prophet, and the wise are equal. So, this special class of wise men and women arose at least as early as the beginning of the kingship period in Israel and functioned as a teacher counselor to those who sought their wisdom. Okay? So, hindi lang yan na leader sila, but they become teacher, some sort of a counselor sa mga tao na gusto magsunod sa ila. And I think eventually sa Israel, it became a rabbi or master. They become a school kaya tungkol may sumulunod sila. And I think there is sa Thailand, may man ang klase sistema, praatsan. Ito, kung ganagin praatsan, kaya mga sumulunod, whether it's sa temple or sa klase-klase man. I thought I was using the wrong verse, but in reality, si Saul is one of those teachers, counselors. So, si Saul damo ni atraso or damo man sala, pero may mga sumulunod man sa galit. And ang mga sumulunod niya eventually were not only his warriors, but may mga tao gid yang interesado nga magpatudlo man sa iya. Now, some were even inspired by God to help write portions of the Old Testament, meaning damo na parte sa Old Testament were written by wise men with the desire to teach others. The wise person served as a sort of substitute parent to the person seeking wisdom from him or her. Now, there is an argument tungkol sa institutionalization of schooling, damo expectation para sa maestra nga abi nila, ang maestra dapat magtudlo sa bata sa mayong pamatasan. Okay? The teacher must not substitute the parent, nor the parent nor the parent should substitute the teacher. I believe matunatan hindi karon wisdom in the home nagsugod ya ang history sa Israel kag by their setup kay why pa to yung mga schooling sa muna why to yung riyan anuban 3 years old ya why to ka minsan enroll or overage ka na or underage ka but actually the wise person served as a substitute parent. Now it's unfortunate nga subong ang expectation sa mga ginikanan nga kamuya tudlo sang tanan. Ang success or ang failure sa akong child nakasalalay sa imo without taking any form of responsibility upon themselves. But the substitute parent, I believe, is somewhat, mas namin nga term is supplemental parent. Dapat, ang bata mo, tudluan mo yan. Alangan ako pa na tanan. Tudluin ni sa balay, pero para pagabot diri sa simbahan o sa eskwelahan, mabuligay ta sa Tagalog, sa pagpupo. Paano ko na nahuhulog ang batang Pinoy? Tanduay. Example, si Joseph was a father to Pharaoh. Okay? Meaning si Pharaoh needed someone to teach him, to counsel him, to guide him. Bisa na muna sila na-appreciate ko lang ba kay Pharaoh for him to even learn from a foreigner, which tells us, hindi nga tao namin isa nga klase leader. Kay waay saya na kulbaan magtuon maggamit sang kaalam sa ibang mga tao. That's why Genesis 45 verse 8 ginapresentaro si Joseph that he was like a father to Pharaoh, he was counseling Pharaoh, he was guiding Pharaoh, and si Deborah, who is a prophetess, is called a mother in Israel. She is some sort of a teacher, counselor. So, kung respeto ka sa tao, especially in the Old Testament, there are teachers of wisdom. And often in the book of Proverbs, we see the wise teacher addressing his or her pupil as my child. And of course, King James translation is my son, which palagyuhan ni subok sa mga bagong translation for us to be gender sensitive. So, ginamit niya my child. Pero namiyan ko lang, kaya ang mga Asian niya lang mga lingwahe ka namin tungkol kay hindi tayo gender-based. Anak. Ang anak niya, pwede bayi, pwede laki. And I think, ma-appreciate ko lang mga maestra na ginatawag nila estudyante nga anak because it bleeds or it it gives a sense of pagpalangga and warmth sa part man sa estudyante. And so, ang Proverbs, sa pagtudlo niya, he's not teaching his gapatiko, he's not teaching his actual child. While the case can be true, gapatiko, he is teaching his pupils or his students or the younger generation, and he addresses them as my child. And this is a way of talking down, talking at the level of the child, tungod kay hatag isang sense of endearment, calling them my child. Parents also send their children to be educated in wisdom attitudes and lifestyles by such wisdom teachers, and these teachers taught their pupils as they would their own children. Now notice, hindi niya ABC ang ilagay na itunan. Look at this. Attitudes and lifestyle. Okay? Kaya amo na, ang concepts ng Galatians, may tutor ang mga Hebrew ng mga bata. Waya pasulod sila sa kindergarten or sa elementary so they can learn how to read, how to write. Ang reading kag writing sa ila sa una hindi importante. Ang importante sa ila sa una for you to learn, whether it's at home or in a formal school, you learn attitude, you learn lifestyle. Una may aratang Plato, may Socrates, attitudes, lifestyle, itong amuniya ang importante sa ila sa una. Subong niya technology, science, mathematics, hasta lang tayo sa mga tutang that doesn't even concern our life. Of course, ang science has to do with life, but why hindi niya ka-affect sa inyong mga batasan. Para sa ilaya, society is everything. So how you live within this society is very important. That's why when they send their children to be educated, attitude and lifestyle is important. Wisdom has always been taught more at home than in any other setting. And this is the Hebrew way of life given tungod sa cultural, historical setting sa ilang time. Hindi ba ito uso ang institution sa lower education or sa elementary education. Hindi ba ito yung basic education nila. So your basic education is at home. Kami na homeschool, nga laban home kaysa sa school, okay lang. Kahit hindi kinanglan tunan mo ang tanan sa kabuhi para masiling kang alam ka. But you have to be a person who can coexist with the society around you. Kahit bisan hindi kaya sagad sa spelling, kung may batasan ka lang, nga sakto nga maayo. Bisan hindi ka pa, valedictorian sa kindergarten. Kahit ang ginhalinan ko itong mga simbahan, may kindergarten kami, ang ginikanan mo patsanay para lang valedictorian ila bata. Kinder pa lang yan ito mapatay na kamo. But wisdom has always been taught more at home than in any other setting. And modern parents teach their children all sorts of wisdom virtually every day and often without even realizing it as they try to help them make the right choices in life. Whether you like it or not, there are teaching moments, but there are also unconscious teaching moments. Of course, so kung lang na-realize nga abi, intuon kagid sa tatay mo nga baliskarada sok-sok imo chinilas kay mabaliskar man imo tail. These are just simple teaching moments that it sticks with you, but there are whether you're conscious or not, most parents, I believe, want their children to be these happy, self-sufficient, and of benefit to others. A good parent spends time in shaping the behavior of his or her children in this direction, talking to them regularly about how to behave. And kaya sang ginikanan, gustong bata niya fail sa kabuhay. So in Proverbs, especially this same sort of practical advice is given, but the difference with Proverbs is it subordinates all its advice to God's wisdom, just as a Christian parent should try to do. Now, by experience, and I know, damo di sa aton kaagi eskwela sa Christian school, Damo di sa ato nakamaestra sa Christian school. If you compare ang bata na nag-eskwela sa Christian school or sa public school, feeling mo sino mas buo. Kaya abit ako ipa-eskwela ako kuning bata ko sa Christian school, kaya perti katunto. Kick out, lain-lain batasan, do demonyo. So, ang Christian parent, ipa-send yung bata sa Christian school, thinking yung base ang Christian school would make his child a little but, Arya, a good parent would desire this for their child, but the difference is, ang pulong sa Ginoo only subordinates all its advice to God's wisdom. Meaning, ang tanan nga wisdom na nakasulat sa Proverbs are filtered by the lenses and the direction of which amo niya ang gusto sa Ginoo. Meaning, there are good, practical advices that a Buddhist parent could teach the child. And they are valid. Kasi, kadto ka sa Japan, bilin-bilin mo cellphone, mabalik na yan sa imo. Pero kadto ka sa Manila, bilin mo yung cellphone, bisan hindi mo pa ibilin, kwaon pala sa imo. So, a Buddhist country can be good. Kasi, halimbawa sila ginikanan. And they're even more respectful than many other countries. But the difference with Proverbs is, ang tanan niyang advice subordinates itself to the wisdom of God. Amo lang na kinalain, why we seek God's wisdom in His book tungod kay ang Diyos is behind everything. Kaya amo lang na kinalain. And the advice may be strongly practical and concerned with secular issues, but it should never fail to acknowledge that the highest good a person can achieve is to do God's will. Okay? Amo gini put into mind ta when we read the book of Proverbs or even the wisdom literature. It may be practical, it may concern our daily life, but the highest good for the wisdom literature is what? What you can achieve in the highest form is to do God's will. In other words, if you become the most successful businessman, but you fail to do God's will, it's not the highest good that you can achieve in life. You can be the most successful person in your field, but if you fail to achieve to do God's will, it's not the highest good that you can achieve in life. If you can achieve both, that's the highest good. That because you become this responsible and successful person, while beneath it all, you know that you are doing and submitting yourself to the will of God. Okay? Kaya sa akin sa una, of course, ako sa pamilya sa pastor, pero nagdako bala sa thinking ang successful lang sa mata sa Ginoo. And there are many pastors who are trying to redefine the word success. Nga, success sa mata ng tao, hindi ni success sa mata ng Ginoo. But sometimes they can be similar. In a sense nga, pwede ko yung maging successful businessman while I love God the most. Okay, so that is still success. Kikabalo ka, you succeed in your field while you achieve the highest good in doing God's will in your very field. Okay, they can go together. But kung para sa imo, your success is at the behest or at the cost of leaving God, forsaking God, or failing to do God's will, whether you're successful sa mata ng tao, of course, you're still a failure sa tubangan sa Ginoo. Okay? Iti ang malisos, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world? Okay? So, one way people refine, so knowing this, as a parent, never, if you can take a picture of this, by pa ang goal mo sa kabuhi, training, of teaching your children or even the next generation is the highest good that my son or my daughter or my children or my students can do is for them to be responsible, for them to be successful, but in doing that, they are achieving in doing God's will. Okay, verse 3. There is also what we call wisdom among colleagues. So, may teachers of wisdom, may wisdom ka makita sa balay, but there are also wisdom among your peers, or upod mo sa obrahan, or sa imong mga kaparihan. So you don't only learn from official teachers, you don't only learn from parents, but you also learn from people of the same field. Now, one way people refine their ability to make the right choices in life is by this discussion and argument. And now they call it forums, or mga boardroom, or may mga ano ginaya, I think mga online na forum that you enter that group, gistoryanay ka mo da, or it could be a formal forum that a certain university or a certain place can organize. But this sort of wisdom arrive at sometimes by lengthy discourse, either in a monologue or in a dialogue. Okay? Now, a lengthy discourse, lawig nga wakal or lawig nga istorya. And a monologue is intended for others to read and reflect on. In a dialogue, they seek to inform each other's opinions on truth and life. Okay, today we have TED Talk, and it's nothing new. Diba? Kaya may isang nakatao, siya na sigiwakal, and we seek to learn from them talking. A lengthy discourse, siya lang naghambal, why not question and answer, mamati lang kasi iya, hoping to learn something. Okay, but before TED Talk, there's already Ecclesiastes. That there is this preacher, ang muna tawag kasi iya, or there's this teacher who reflected on life, who learned upon life, and put that learning in a lesson with this lengthy monologue. Okay? While ang dialogue is persons seeking to inform each other's opinions on truth and life. Pinoy mong talk show. And I think why untata na yung talk show. Si Tony Talks. Okay, sa ilang ang pag-istoryahan na, sa ilang ang pagbayluhan na. And actually, ang Asian medyo refined pa. Pero sa Amerikaya, amo lang ni, sige lang sila inaaway. Kaya gahabuyan na isang opinion. Kung gisa, sobra ka-opinionated, ka-strong sa opinion sa host, ginapuntra niya ang iyang gina-interview. Yung gina-interview niya, init man ulo, sila lang doon ang inaway or go-walk out. Okay? So, if you watch CNN, especially kung i-interview nila ang kontra nila, why ginapakadwa ng istorya, but this is how we learn. With informing each other's opinions on truth and life, and we have learned that from Job. So we can learn from both. Kung siya lang nagawakal, siya lang isa, or dua or more sila gawakal, we can learn. So the kind of wisdom that predominates the book of Proverbs is what we call proverbial wisdom. Okay? Whereas the kind found in Ecclesiastes and Job is usually called speculative wisdom. Meaning speculative wisdom. A speculative wisdom is about a person and its relationship to questions such as the meaning of life, suffering, or the relationship between that person and a deity. This is a standard secular definition. Speculative is you speculate on life to try to find meaning. This is another term for philosophy. Okay, bisa abita ang Biblia doesn't concern philosophy because to me, Buddhism is not a religion. Buddhism became a religion, but in reality, it's a philosophy. Buddha is not a deity, but Buddha is deified. O siya gambal simbahan niyo ko. Ang Ginoo ya gambal simbahan ko. That's faith. La? Kaya Ginoo ka pangaki kung simbahon mong iban. Si Buddha way lagot kung simbahon mo sa or masimbak sa iban. He's just a philosopher who tried to find meaning in life. Doon hindi nila makita ang imbalance nga manggranon ko nga may pag-antos. So tungod sa pag-antos, he tried to find meaning. And we have philosophy in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes and Job. When people try to find meaning in life, you can find wisdom with that learning, and with that learning, you can learn from them. Okay? Speculative wisdom actually is highly practical and empirical rather than merely theoretical. Mula na-appreciate sa Ecclesiastes kaya sa Job, kaya ang ilay nga philosophy is not abstract. Nga do, hindi mo lang matungkad nga verte katalog ng mga of course, sa ato na lang yan sa Pilipinas, magsiling ka ganit pilosopo, meaning kapang supo kaya, hindi kaya kay philosopher ka. Pero kay pilosopo, ang meaning sa pilosopo, damo ka rason-rason sa kabuhi, kasagad si imong mag-argue. But actually, hindi ka dalong or hindi ka alam, hilig ka lang magbais. Ano meaning sa pilosopo? But actually, in speculative wisdom is practical and experiential. Okay? Meaning, ang ini nga mga pamangkot parte sa kabuhi, kag sa meaning sa kabuhi, are relevant in our daily life. Okay? And the kind of wisdom found in Song of Solomon is called lyrical wisdom. Okay? So you also learn from a song. Okay? Damo. Magabot sa Song of Solomon, mabalanta lang ni. Nga damo man natunanta sa mga love songs. Okay? So you don't only learn from proverbs, proverbial wisdom, or philosophy, but you also learn from, kaya Song of Solomon this is a love song. So, muna erotic, sensual, physical, lyrical love song. Okay, so pagabot sa Song of Solomon, prepara lang kamong kanta sa inyo nga theme song sa inyong mag-asawa. As Christians, can we quote Buddha? Depende. Depende sa iya ginhambal. Ako kapati that all truth is God's truth. Meaning, if what is said is valid and what is said is not false and what is said is not contradicting sa Ginoo, all truth is God's truth, whether ginhambalan ni Satanas or ginhambalan ni Buddha. How do I know? Gin-record gani sa Ginoo ginhambal ni Satanas. So, it tells me that God wants us to learn as much from Satan as He wants us to learn from others. Okay? Iti, ang puntong lang ni Satanas kay Job, sa Ginoo, nahanungod kay Job, Lord, kuaab lang blessing, kay iti, isumpa ya ka na. Basic, tuod sakto mag-isa sa Satanas. So, I can learn from what Satan said. Meaning, of course, kalain lang galing, kung mas ginakot mo pa si Buddha, kaya nag-interesar ka pa kay Buddha, kaysa kilala mo Ginoo. So, makonsentrate ko na sa pagkilala ko sa Ginoo so that when I compare it with other philosophy, my belief about God is firm. And I subject all philosophy and all other truths nga na-discover sang tao sa iya sang Ginoo. So I learn from God's truth first, then subordinate that truth, all other truths with God, so that I know what is true or false. So to go back to the question, can we quote Buddha? The answer is yes. In fact, sang aga, akunwali is judgment, sang final judgment sa Revelation 20, the day would come that ang tanan nga tao, every person will be judged for for each of their deeds. Amo nang tema sa Biblia, amo man ang tema sa Buddhism. Karma is everyone will be judged according to their deeds. Galing ang iya sang taya karma ang pina, hindi Ginoo. So you know the similarity, each one will be judged according to their deeds. Pero kinalain lang with Buddhism, karma ang ma-judge. Sa Christianity, Ginoo is the judge. Okay, so I can quote similar thing, but I can see the difference. Any other question? Okay. Now, students and teachers alike in the Old Testament times use a variety of literary techniques as aids to remembering their wisdom. And God inspired the wisdom portions of the Bible according to such techniques so that they might be learnable and memorizable. Now, ang muna may mga techniques sila gingamit para hapustunan kag ma-memorize. poetry became the medium of the Old Testament wisdom. I think this is the easiest way for them to learn before. So Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Job, and Song of Solomon are composed mostly in poetry. Amo na, doon hindi mo ubos isip sa mga tao, paano kaalam ang si Job, ang iyang mga amigo, kasi si Job, perde ng aro sa lawas, perde ng skin disease, he had the ability to compose such a beautiful poem. Because in Hebrew, it was Shakespearean before Shakespeare. Doon nila lang pati, Job, gakagid sa kalang term. Gapangkagid ka na sa imo katul, pero nakaisip ka pa mag-compose poetry. Grabe, no? Do, grabe na pangalot mo, grabe na pag-antos mo, grabe na imo depression, pero naka-Shakespeare ka pa pag-istorya mo. Pwede na. But in reality, Ecclesiastes, Job, Song of Solomon, and Proverbs are mostly in poetry. And among the techniques they use are parallelism. Okay, ang gining common kagtunatan ni sa sunod, natunatan na initially sa prophets, synonymous ang first kag second line pariho, antithetical gina-compare ang first kag second line, ang synthetic parallel is 3 or 4 lines, ang third kag ang fourth line builds up the thought of the first, second. And other techniques are what we call acrostics. Proverbs 31, tanan nga litra sa Hebrew ginsulat, meaning may design inbutang, or alliteration, or numerical sequences, or comparisons such as similes and metaphors. And among other techniques are parables, allegories, riddles, and other poetic techniques found in them. Okay, so bear in mind that it may not be poetry sa aton kitong magin-translate siya. So hindi mo ma-appreciate ang flow. Hindi mo ma-appreciate ang beauty sa ano na ganito tawag? Sa rhythm, flow and rhythm. Duga sibo ang mga words. Muna sa Tagalog may mga makata, paghambal sila do kanami pamatian. Or sa Thai kanami pamatian. Or sa English it makes sense. But because it was originally composed in Hebrew, and for the Hebrew, it's this beautiful language, galing pag-translate sa aton, kabudlay na paiguon. Kaya mong pinaka-struggle ko sa mga lyrics, ang lasang kinakanta ko na aga, ang English, i-translate mo sa Thai, just trying to convey the thought, but the flow, hindi, do kabudlay isunod. Ito, may mga naming, ang mga words, pag-arrange mo sa English, pag-translate mo sa Thai, guba ang kanamiun sa pag or sa kagina ang quote, the one who bore my shame can bear each care I name. Mula na, simple lang. The one who bore took my shame can bear each care I name. Ga rhyme sa English, pero i-translate mo na sa Ilonggo or sa Thai, guba ang pastada. Okay? Now, it is important to remember that not all wisdom in the ancient world was godly or orthodox. Throughout the ancient East, there was a class of wise teachers and scribes who were supported often by kings or royalty in the task of collecting, composing, and refining wisdom, proverbs, and discourses. Now, sa gamay kami, Y Cable TV, every 8 p.m. after sang royal news. Why ka choice, kundi lang tawon mo na, tungod kay after sina, magwa na dahil ang drama or soap opera tagagabi. Why ka man choice, why to YouTube sa una, why to on demand, why cable. Kung nagagawa sa TV, lang tawon mo gin. So lang tawa na balita, lang tawa sports, lang tawa royal news, then among pagsulod sang kung ano man na drama, gagawa tagagabi. But after some royal news, there is a royal wisdom proverb. Si King Pumipon, like any other king in Thailand, has took upon himself to compose proverbs. Okay? So natabo gali, hindi si Solomon and the wise men of Israel were the first, but it's a common custom among them nga kung hari ka, kay tungod manggaranon ka gani, ikaw pinakataas, so dapat do advansi ka man gamay sa iniswilahan. So people expect you to be wise. Or kung hindi man ang hari alam, he would commission wise people and support them to collect and compose and refine wisdom proverbs. Ang muna sa book of Proverbs, hindi lang si Solomon ang sulat, but at the end of it, si Hezekiah, king of Israel, may araman siya sa grupo sa mga wise men nga ginpangsweldohan, ginpaeskwela, mula sila ni Daniel, hindi sila hari, they were blue blood, pero mga tanda ng mga bata, mga alam ng mga bata. In other words, it's not uncommon for normal, random, ungodly people to be wise. But much of this wisdom resembles the Old Testament wisdom writings, though it lacks the firm emphasis on the Lord as the origin of wisdom and the purpose of wisdom as to please Him. Ari lang galing kinalain. Alam si Pumipon and every other king who can be wise, but the difference is they don't know God. And of course, ang ilang kaalam doesn't point you to God or doesn't encourage you to please Him. Wisdom does not cover. So, in other words, pwede sila yung alam lang, pero they don't have to teach you to love God. And the difference with Proverbs is, this is a wisdom from a king, but a king who loves the Lord above all. Ang key verse of Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is the beginning and the end. Pati ko ha, muna nag-end ng Ecclesiastes, the end of all matter is this, fear God. Same thing. Beginning of wisdom is fear God. And the end of all things is still the same, fear God. So from the beginning to the object, to the purpose, or to the end of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. Wisdom does not cover all of life. Meaning, di tanan nga area sa kabuhi, makita mo sa kalam sa Ginoo. And how I wish sa graduate ko high school ako gining dilema sa akong kabuhi. Ano kurso ako ba? May mga bata yan, grade 1 pa sila, they have figured it out. Sa plano nila kabuhi, ma-doktor ko. Plano nila kabuhi, ma-engineer ko. Plano nila kabuhi, maamo ko ni. Miss Universe ko. Galing, ako nag-graduate mo ako high school, may 1 year ako sa seminary, why to kabalo, ano ako na bro? So how I wish that when I open the Bible can tell me which course I take, which school I go, pila ka tuig, ma-masters ko or hindi. Intensely practical, it tends not to touch on theological or historical issues so important elsewhere in the Bible. It does not cover all of life. It doesn't give you answers to everything. It's also intensely practical, so it's not theological. Kung gusto mo theology, Ephesians. Amo to kanina, theology after theology. Ang isa pa lang ka word, you can spend a book to explain it. Pero ang Proverbs siya, practical. So, hindi ka na-expectar na may theology nga damo sa Proverbs. And skill and wisdom does not guarantee that it will be properly arihat. Hindi kay tungod alam ka lang, gamiton mo na ni Dayo. Example, si Jonadab. Sino ni sa? Jonadab was Amnon's advisor, or Amnon. Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother. Meaning, ano ni sila? Because Amnon was one of David's son. So if Jonadab is the son of Shimeah, David's brother, ano sila? Si Amnon kag si Jonadab. Si Amnon, bata ni David, friend niya si Jonadab, pero si Jonadab, anak sang utod ni David. Okay, first cousin. Meaning, si Amnon, anak ni David, si Shimeah, iya friend, galing iya friend, happens to be the son of his uncle. So, pakaisa sila. And here, Jonadab was said to be a very crafty man. So, sakto ang translation sa King James, sa ESV, kabalo kayo niya, ano niya, truso ng tao, marot-marot ni. Anong advice ay ni Jonadab kay Amnon? Si Amnon was so in love with his half-sister. si Tamar. Do kapangsot lang sa ngalan, pero gwapa ni sa kuno. Okay? Pero ti kagwapa, ngalanan mo bata si Tamar. Pangitaan ang definition kay Ruben. Kung ano meaning sa Tamar? Tamara, pwede mo. Pero di sa ka gwapa nga na in love iya pa kay iya half brother sa iya. Ti ambal ni I think si Tamar manghod ni Absalom. Ti ambal ni Amnon ano himuon ko. Nagkadto sa iya migo ya pa kaisa niya man. Di ba no ta? Ti ambal sang close sila mo sa iya half sister. Ti ambal ni Jonadab using his wisdom. Pasakit-sakit ka. Ano na? Tadulong kapag ka. Galing, para mahimok mo na, bulong mo hindi ka kabangon. So, ma-request ka, breakfast in bed. Ma-request ka nga, pahungit ka sa imo half-sister. And I think if you read that portion of scripture, abots na ni Tamar nga iluguson sa iya half-brother. Kaya would you dare do this to me? And I think kanami, man lang abay, hindi na sa gwapa, alam bagay siya, in a sense nga, kung himuon mo na kabalo ka din, may matabo kamalahin. And it actually did, it actually happened. But si Amnon, why not? Was carried away with his lust, was carried away with his emotion, raped his half-sister then and there, to the point that even Absalom, knowing it, wanted to kill Amnon. Okay, long hair si Absalom, di kitong rockstar sa o rockers. Kundi amuning rason nga natunga ginharian ni David, natunga iya pamilya kay tungod ginkampihan ni David si Amnon. Why gin papatay? Amuning rason nga kung damo ka asawa, feeling mo maglinong inyong pamilya. Si Amnon was a son from a different mother with Tamar and Absalom. So Jonadab was very crafty, he was very wise, but it doesn't guarantee that if you are wise, you will properly use it. Ang mga lang kalalaw ay sa kung isa, alam ka sa katuntuhan. And Jonadab was one of those alam sa katuntuhan. And this is one of those sad verses in the Bible. Sa katuntuhan, ready, go. When Solomon was old, his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his. Good. If you read Proverbs, you know how wise this man is. If you read First Kings, you know how godly this man started on. He is the son, the appointed son, the chosen son of the man after God's own heart. Nami mantani, iya puturo, galing kasiling sila, for political reasons, may mga hari din that have to marry politically. Pasaon ko ang anak sang hari sa Egypt or sa every other kingdom so that I can form alliances. Some marriages were formed out of political reasons. Pagkapati ko, Solomon was filled with folly in himself, and he tried to find pleasure even with his relationships. Hindi niya ka-contain ang isulat sa Kings to the point nga may aral sa komentaryo, his heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God, even though he started off wise. But that does not invalidate the wisdom he earned or he acquired. But it doesn't mean that you're skillful at wisdom, it will automatically be used. Okay? Hindi kayo tungkol skillful ka lang. Meaning, you can expect nga, of course, we don't want our leaders or our pastors or our elders to be skillful at wisdom, yet do not properly use it. To the point na masaling inyo, pastor, sa inyo, just do what I tell you, but do not do what I do. Kalain, no? Patiya lang ko sa ginahambal ko sa imo, pero hindi lang ko patihan sa akong ginaubraman mismo. Kung mo nang pinakabudlay gid, kung siguro kung bata mo, gwa ka to, hampang ka to sa gwa, kung ikaw mismo, ay kapanto ka gwa. Para ang naberme, ay ka ginaubra. But follow what I say, but do not follow what I do, because skill and wisdom does not guarantee that it will properly. Okay. Only when wisdom as a skill is subordinated to obedience to God does achieve its proper ends in the Old Testament sense. So wisdom is always subordinated to the fear of the Lord. That's why wisdom is the ability to make godly choices in life. Responsible, successful, godly living. This is what we aspire. Okay? So, for the next generation, for our children and our grandchildren, what we desire is that we can teach them to become responsible, successful, godly people. Success comes with being responsible. Success comes with being godly. Kay actually sa subong, damo lang mga tao gusto nila shortcut. Gusto nila success without being responsible. Gusto nila success without being godly. But the goal of the wisdom in the Bible is to be responsible, godly, and be successful in doing it. Okay, so dahil para ma-end, so mga hapon, any question? Okay, kung kisa galing, ang pag-equate lang isa sa kaluwasan when it comes sa Old Testament kasi New, lain. Old Testament, kung wala pa na complete ni Jesus ang kaluwasan, our thought of backsliding is slightly different. Pero when you go to the book of Proverbs, it simplifies everything. It's either you fear or do not fear. It's either you obey or do not obey. Kaya si Solomon man ganito mismo naghambal nga ate matunan ta pa ni sa ibang mga ng example next time. Folly is like a prostitute, nagapahaga. And at the end of that road is death. Siya man ganito nag-coin, siya man ganito naghambal that wisdom is like this beautiful woman, godly woman. Kabalo kagid may maganar kagid nga maayo. So in this sense, can we say that he nag-backslide siya kag ano natabo at the end of his life? I could say my theory nagasiling that Ecclesiastes was his late life reflection. I still have yet to confirm that. And if that is true, I hope it happened to him. Okay? But he is a very good case of someone who can be so godly, who can be so wise, yet, last week, the higher the rise, the harder the fall. Kung ano kakataas ng saka, among ka man ka tudo matumba. Ang lagapak ng perte. So I hope what he's saying sa Ecclesiastes is true. Nga ginawarningan niya ang mga papatanon. Kabalo ka mo, gapangabuhi ka mo subong, sige, pahala, pagustuhin yung ginhawa. Kung gusto ko mong pakasala, but remind yourself that one day you will give account to God. Meaning, muna yung mga tao ang gapaandam. And how I wish that theory is true, yung Ecclesiastes is written in retrospect. Meaning, insulat niya, kay ginbalikan niya yung kabuhi, ay, direk kong galing nagsala sa Ginoo. So, palihog, hindi nyo sunda ako inhimo. Which, from both angles, could be good. Kay tungod, ang Proverbs, sa mga starter, ang munihimo nga beginning, sa Ecclesiastes naman niya, this is how you don't do it. Hindi nyo ni palihog, agyan. And I think there's no more valid person to say it, but someone nga nakaagigid man tinunto. But at the middle of it, nga nagtinunto siya, it's never good nga nagtinunto siya. So, it's backslidden in a sense, in a clear sense, yes. But how I just wish nga ang Ecclesiastes is his redemption story. All the great words. For redemption. Okay, any other question? I think, ano na, isa sa mga libro na may basa ako, wish ko wala pa ng pandemic, ma-Ecclesiastes na kita tani, galing ti. Sa tanong nga magpagkantos plano na ako sa ni Joe. Ecclesiastes is a good book for you to read with your teenager or ano na, though ano na bla, amat-amat na sila pilit sa ilang desisyon. Because actually, Ecclesiastes is a good warning sign sa mga bata na pangita pa sa ila identity, sa ila direction in life. This is one of those books that have blessed me growing up as a teenager going to adolescence, which disputing and isubong sa mga theologian nga adolescence is an excuse for irresponsible living. Kaya adolescent lang na sa teenager, normal lang na sa teenager. Kaya sa Hebrew it's either you're a child or you're an adult. Pag bar mitzvah mo 12 years old mo, why na niya adolescent? Why na niya teenage life? It's either you're a child who act childish or you're an adult. Galing subong niya, 30 years old, sige pa computer games. So, grade 5 yapon ng batasan, hindi nga po kabalo mong hugas ang pinggan, yapon kabalo mong laba, mamasboy yapon because of adolescence. Okay. Any other question? Okay, buena. Mabiyan po si Lori. Pag-pray. Nanay ni Tamar sa kitchen. Thank you, Ms. Lori.